For years, if you were looking to buy a compact, premium, sporty family SUV, Mazda would happily sell you a CX-5. It accounts for over 50% of the company's US sales here in America. Now for 2023, Mazda is expanding your choices to include this model. This is the brand new CX-50, and while it technically doesn't share the same platform as the CX-5, it is a slightly larger vehicle. It's wider by about 3 inches, and it's longer by about 6.5 inches, and the interior has a very unique design that still goes, of course, with Mazda's premium design philosophy. Now, when I first had a chance to drive this vehicle out in California in March, I was pretty impressed with the overall package. However, this week, as you can see, Mazda has loaned me this CX-50 2.5 turbo premium plus trim in this beautiful zircon sand metallic exterior color. So in this video, we're going to live with the car for a week. We're going to put it through our usual battery of tests, and at the end of this review, I'm going to find out if you guys are in the market for a CX-5, should you go ahead and just put the CX-50 at the top of your list? Stay tuned to find out. Now, before we start talking about the exterior styling changes between the CX-50 and the CX-5, I want to remind you what's going on underneath the hood of the CX-50. Now, if you guys are familiar with the engines in the CX-5, this is going to be a similar proposition. You have a choice between either a 2.5 liter naturally aspirated 4-cylinder, it's their Skyactiv G's 4-cylinder, makes 187 horsepower, or you can go for a turbo version of that same engine. You can see Skyactiv G Turbo with direct injection. It makes up to 256 horsepower and 320 pound-feet of torque. That's if you feed it premium. If you guys give it regular, power drops to 227 horsepower and 310 pound-feet of torque. Those numbers are pretty good. The engine has been around for quite some time now. The downfall with this engine is it still uses Mazda's 6-speed Skyactiv automatic transmission. Now, 6 speeds was a great amount of gears like 10 years ago. However, it has seriously fallen behind compared to 8, 9, and 10-speed automatics. Fuel economy for this vehicle is rated at 23 in the city, 29 on the highway. So technically, this actually gets better gas mileage versus the CX-5, which is rated at 22, 27. Surprisingly, the non-turbo engine gets 22, 27 as well. So it's actually better gas mileage on the highway if you guys go with the turbo engine versus the non-turbo engine. Now, the beauty about the turbo in this model is it tows up to 3,500 pounds, 2,000 pounds if you guys go for the base 2.5 without the turbo. And this vehicle is heavier than a CX-5 or a CX-30. Obviously, it weighs in at just over 4,100 pounds. Now, Mazda didn't quote a 0 to 60 performance, but we'll test that out when we get the vehicle out on the road. Now, let me go ahead and close the hood and show you guys the rest of the styling. Now, this vehicle, when I first saw it, when Mazda revealed it last year, I was really impressed. I think it's a very handsome looking SUV that essentially takes Mazda's Kodo design theme, which is starting to look a little bit tired, but they've merged it with some rugged off-road themes with just the right amount of cladding and black accents. You can see the headlights on this vehicle are full LED. Mazda includes basically their current Kodo design theme with the LED daytime running lights, LED low and high beams. You do have LED turn signals down here. No fog lights on this vehicle, but you can see the grille is enlarged. I like kind of this like chain link fence look to the actual grille. I would like to see Mazda offer the emblem in like a black package, but you can't deny how good looking this car is. I also think that the front silver accent here, which tries to resemble a skid plate, looks nice, and there are some functional vents here on the side of the vehicle, some tastefully integrated parking sensors. So overall, I think this car is really attractive looking, especially in this zircon sand metallic exterior. It's $400 extra for the paint color. Now, I mentioned earlier this car is about 6.5 inches longer than a CX-5 at around 186 inches long overall. This is about 6 inches longer versus something like a Toyota RAV4. However, I would compare this car directly with a Subaru Outback, and the Outback is another 5 inches longer than this vehicle. The Mazda is about 3 inches wider than the CX-5 at around 75 inches wide. Its wheelbase is 110.6 inches long. It's around 4 inches longer. I really like the wheels on this car. These are probably my favorite wheels that I've seen on a mainstream vehicle. You can see they're kind of a twin spoke two-tone finish with the machine and the black inner spokes. They're wrapped in pretty fat 245 45 R20 tires, so I wasn't expecting that. Would love to see Mazda offer like a red painted caliper, but remember, this isn't exactly a performance-oriented model. And unlike the CX-30 CX-30, which has way too much cladding that looks bad. This has a good amount of cladding where it doesn't look overwhelming, especially with this color option. The one thing about the CX-50 that you'll like as well is the ground clearance. This vehicle has about 8.6 inches of ground clearance, about an extra inch of ground clearance versus the CX-5. And because this is built on the CX-30 current generation Mazda 3 platform, the one thing that you won't get, however, is an independent rear suspension. You have a semi-independent twist beam back here, which means it's a little bit cheaper for Mazda to build, but we'll talk about the ride quality and handling balance later when we get into the driving scene. Now at the rear, you can see the rear is a little bit more plain looking, but it still looks equally attractive. You have taillights that mimic the look of the headlights with an LED design as well. You can see lots of cladding. There's fake vents over here, which I don't like. There's a little bit too much badging at the back. Mazda has a tendency to go overboard with the badging. And then over here, you can see they try to do like a fake skid plate look. The rear exhaust chrome tips, dual chrome tips are very tasteful looking. And overall, because this vehicle is wide, 3 inches wider than the CX-5, you do get more cargo space, but this is less versus competitors. There's around 31.6 cubic feet of space back here, which is pretty good. You can see, open this up, there is a temporary spare and there's a little bit of storage underneath here. However, cars like the Toyota RAV4 offer like another 5 to 6 cubic feet more space, and the Outback offers like another 5 more cubic feet. If you fold down the second row seats, it expands it out. You can do that actually from the seat back, or from back here, which is nice. It expands it out to around 56.5 cubic feet of space. Again, good numbers, but something like the Outback has around 75 cubic feet of space, so that's something to keep in mind. This is very practical, but it's still a little bit compromised compared to the competition. So now let's move on to the inside of the CX-50 in this Premium Plus Turbo trim level. I want to show you guys the key fob. Remind you, this is Mazda's current key fob. It's large, it's a little bit bulky, and I actually prefer the older fob, which is rare. I usually like the newer fob. However, there are your usual buttons here to lock, unlock it, open up the trunk. No remote start on the fob, but you should be able to use your Mazda Connect app and remote start the vehicle through your phone app. I just don't have access to it because this is a press vehicle. Now looking at the interior, you can see the zircon sand metallic is complemented by this terracotta premium upscale Napa leather interior, which I really love the way this looks. This is a new interior color for Mazda. You can see it has a two-tone look with the contrasting black accents. You even have that carried over onto the dash and door panels. I love the contrast stitching here. This is a soft touch injection molded plastic. There's some plastic trim here, which tries to look like a black brushed aluminum trim, which definitely doesn't fool anybody. This is a nice padded area over here, chrome accented door handles. The one thing I don't like is this cheap material here for the grab handle. This is where I'm gonna grab it all the time to close the door. I would have preferred something over here, or at least make this leather wrapped. You can see the seats there are adjustable in 10 different ways. They're heated and ventilated. You have 2-person memory seats on the driver's side, and they're really comfortable and supportive, and I love the way that it looks. Now getting inside, with 8.6 inches of ground clearance, it makes for a very easy step-in height into this vehicle, and then when I shut the door, it has a nice solid sounding thunk, which really adds to that level of quality. Now starting it up, you can see button is right here where you'd expect it to be. And most versions of the CX-50 is going to have Mazda's 10.25-inch Mazda Connect head unit here. This is the first Mazda vehicle to give you wireless Apple CarPlay and wireless Android Auto. You can see I got in, my phone's in the vehicle, it's not plugged in and automatically connected right away. This screen definitely is an improvement. However, it is still too far away. Again, this screen is a touchscreen right now when I'm moving, only in CarPlay. It's only a touchscreen. If you go back to the Mazda Connect system here, you can see it's not a touchscreen because this system was not designed to incorporate a touchscreen, which means I have to use the command wheel here until, again, I go to the CarPlay, which I have to access by clicking this over here to the side, and that will give me the CarPlay, and that gives me the touchscreen functionality. Remember, this works while I'm driving. It's the first Mazda that allows me to use the CarPlay as a touchscreen while the vehicle is moving. Now that we've gotten that out of the way, let's talk about the rest of the interior materials. You can see the dash has a soft touch injection molded plastic. My tester also has a very nice heads-up display, which is actually projected into the windshield. It's also soft touch over here, nice and very soft over here with the contrasting stitching. This looks very interesting, where Mazda kind of tried to make this look like an actual vent, but it's not. Here's the singular vent that they added here randomly for the passenger side. This plastic trim here looks a little bit cheap. Not the biggest fan of it. You can see it's also on the door panels. Down here, it's all hard touch plastic. There's some chrome around here with the 2 vents that go around the driver's side. You have a half digital, half analog instrument panel here, which is sort of customizable. You can kind of customize it by hitting this info button here and changing what the center screen kind of looks like. But again, where is an all digital display Mazda? Everyone else is kind of going to an all digital display. And I think it's time that Mazda also joins that party. Now, the steering wheel itself, you can see it's manual tilt and telescoping, offer a good amount of adjustability. The wheel is the same one that's on the Mazda 3 and CX-30. It's a big wheel. Would like to see a flat bottom design. The leather feels nice. Controls, of course, for your driver assistance, for your audio controls. The horn sounds pretty good, very typical for this size of vehicle. It screams, get out of my way. Down here, you can see there's a lot of buttons here to turn off the driver aids. You can access the full 360 camera there, which you can see right there. Mazda's really improved on the resolution and graphics, so I'm really happy to see that. You can turn off the parking sensors, of course, from here. Traction control, there's your auto start stop. You can turn off, and your memory seats are over here as well. Going back over here to the center display, you can see here's the Mazda head unit with their Mazda integrated navigation system, which is fine. They use, I believe, TomTom, which is a little bit slow. You can see I can basically back out and zoom out and show the entire Earth if I'd like. But most of you are probably going to skip using that and just use the Apple CarPlay and Android Auto interface anyways, so it's not really a big concern. You can see there's dual zone climate control here, much like the traditional knobs and vents. The heated and ventilated seats also work fairly nice. There's a heated steering wheel as well, which is just one level, although from this angle, trying to look at this, I have to actually look down to see if the heated steering wheel is active, so not really great in terms of planning there, but that's kind of like a small niggle. These vents, or these knobs, also feel very high quality and premium. I like how there's some decent storage here for your phone right there. That's not the wireless phone charging pad, however. That is found over here, where it's an interesting location, and you can see my iPhone 12 Pro Max barely fits in there. It actually kind of goes over the edge a little bit, so that's something to keep in mind. Very traditional shifter for the 6-speed automatic. You can see if you guys prefer that, put it in reverse. There's your backup camera again. You're going to really like what Mazda has to offer here. There's your drive mode selector here. You can see Mazda offers 3 of them now. There's sport, normal, and off-road. And apparently if you hook this up to a trailer, it'll change sport to a tow haul mode, which Mazda has always kind of avoided using drive modes before. The vehicle drives pretty similarly in sport and normal. In an off-road mode, it will essentially adjust the traction control to send power to the wheel that has no grip in it, or that has the most grip in it, to get you on your way. Volume knob over here to the right, which is nice. You can see over here a nice padded center console area. You have an electronic parking brake, and then when you open this up, you can see there it opens in 2 ways. It's a pretty good size center storage. There's 2 USB-A charging ports over there, another power outlet over here, which is nice. And then I mentioned earlier the seats are comfortable and supportive. You open this up, you can see pretty decent sized glove compartment. The lid is damped but not lined with felt. Above me you can see the material for this is not a woven material. It feels a little bit cheap, but you do have LED map lighting in here. You have a sunglass holder, big panoramic roof. This is also the first Mazda to include it. You can see there is a bar here that cuts into the openness, but at least the roof does open. So if you want to open this up, you can see it opens just over the front seats. And if that's the biggest it opens, that's not very big at all, but at least Mazda is giving you a pano roof that opens, which is nice. So overall, the interior definitely still feels on the premium end. I like how Mazda is including wireless CarPlay. It's not as upscale, however, as the CX-5, but compared to something like the Outback, this definitely feels a smidge more premium. The 12-speaker Bose stereo system, before I forget, also sounds pretty good, much better versus what you find in like the CR-V or the Toyota RAV4. Looking at the back seat of the CX-50, because of that stretch in the wheelbase, you do have more legroom back here. Mazda says you get just under 40 inches. There's 39.8, which is actually the same as something like the Subaru Outback. So again, very usable back seat, especially if you have to carry a car seat back here or taller adults. The material, sadly, on the door panels are hard touch plastic compared to the soft panels on the front. So they did downgrade there. At least this is still covered in leather and it's padded over here, which is definitely nice. Still the same cheap material here for the grab handle. But once I get inside the back seat, you can see at 5'7", I just have a ton of space to kind of stretch about. Surprised there's no flat floor here. There is a hump that will intrude on your space. You do have 2 rear seat air vents. You have 3-level heated seats back here, which is nice. You also have 2 USB-A charging ports. Surprised it's not the USB-C. And then Mazda gives you 1 storage pocket. Now, in terms of the rear seats themselves, they do fold down, obviously. And I'm trying to see if this vehicle allows you to, looks like no, this rear seat does not recline, so that's a shame. So they are fixed other than folding down. You do have an armrest that folds down and gives you 2 cup holders. And for 2 people, honestly, it's very, very comfortable back here. So this is definitely on the bigger end. Above me, you can see the sunroof does come all the way to the back, but this panel, remember, doesn't open. But overall, very useful back seat, and it does have more room versus the CX-5. So here we are back in the 2023 Mazda CX-50. When I first had a chance to drive this SUV out in California in April, I was really impressed. I mean, I was excited to drive this car because it was a fantastic, handsome looking SUV. Now that I have it back at home for a week to test, I still think this is one of the best looking SUVs out there, although it's still kind of a confusing vehicle in Mazda's lineup. Now this one here that we're driving is the Premium Plus with the 2.5 liter turbo. It is the top engine for now. There is most likely a hybrid coming whenever Mazda decides to steal that technology from Toyota, the RAV4 hybrid, which will make this a really nice driving SUV with much better gas mileage. But we have the car in sport mode right now. Let's go ahead and see what we can get 0 to 60 back home. It responds well to brake torquing it. The 6-speed does shift pretty slowly, but we just got 6.75 seconds there, which is not bad. It's, I think, a little slower than when I first tested this vehicle. Although it may actually be, I think I got like around the 7-second mark. I'll have to double check the video, but 6.75 is slower than a CX-5, which makes sense. This car is bigger and heavier. The engine sound isn't super pleasant. It's a 2.5 liter direct injection, big turbocharged 4-cylinder, but the engine makes really good mid-range grunt. That's what the engine's always been known for. We've known this engine for a while. Mazda's been using it for quite some time now. And it's a relatively good engine that's paired up with a transmission that is a little bit slow to shift. But let's go ahead and try it one more time. It's funny how it spins out the front tires when you brake torque it. Short shifts at 5,500. 6.93 seconds there. So I remember I got 6.9 when I first tested it. So 6.72 is a little bit better. We'll go ahead and we'll take that time, but just know that this car isn't quicker than a Subaru Outback with a turbo engine. The Subaru with its CVT, and when you launch it, is just a surprisingly quick vehicle. 6.2 seconds for that car. The Wilderness is even quicker. It's sub 6 seconds, which is technically almost a second faster than this car. So even though, you know, enthusiasts like to hammer on CVTs, we don't like CVTs for how they sound. They deliver better performance, especially when you're paired up with this really slow shifting 6-speed. And again, there was a time where a 6-speed auto was the perfect amount of gears, and that's just not the case anymore. These newer transmissions with 8, 9, 10 speeds have just proven that 6 is very, very behind the times. So Mazda, hurry up and give us a new transmission. I'll be curious to drive this car with the hybrid powertrain that you borrow from Toyota. Now that we're driving the car for a week, let's talk a little about the rest of the driving dynamics. So I'm going to put this car back into its normal mode. This car, remember, shares a platform with the CX-30, which is in turn built with the current generation Mazda 3 platform, which means we have a semi-independent torsion beam suspension at the back, these big 20-inch wheels. So it's technically a downgrade from the CX-5, which has a fully independent rear suspension. It's built on the older chassis, which the Mazda 3 used to use, which they're technically still the same platform. It's just they cheapened the rear suspension for the newer platform. But just driving this around town, like I have the car in normal right now, you can feel lots of mid-range torque, you know, good smooth shifts from the automatic. It feels peppy enough. I wouldn't even dare consider driving this car with the base 2.5. It's going to just be really lethargic because it is about 300 pounds heavier versus a Mazda 3 with that engine or a Mazda CX-30 with that engine. So it's going to feel slow. Definitely go with the turbo. The ride quality I want to talk about is definitely on the firmer side. Mazdas have always had a firmer ride, but the CX-5 I think has a better ride quality because of that independent rear suspension. The steering in this car also is quick and direct. It offers surprisingly good feel. It's relatively heavy though. For a family SUV, people might not like how heavy it feels. Put my foot down there, you can feel the super slow shifting automatic. It really just makes this car feel neutered. It could feel more urgent. I mean, it's got the handling dynamics to feel like a sporty SUV, but surprisingly, the Outback will smoke this car all day long with its 2.4 turbo, and that's confusing to me considering that is not designed to be a sporty SUV, but Mazda, you know, touts this up as being a sporty SUV. It's got their G vectoring control, so it'll essentially effectively move the weight around the vehicle front and rear, side to side, to give us the most neutral handling balance. And the result is pretty good. This thing corners way better than any other SUV in this class. And it's also got great visibility. The seats are pretty comfortable and supportive. They are a little bit on the firmer side for me. They're just borderline firm. I could deal with it, but kind of, try it out for yourself. Make sure that the seats are comfortable for you. Put my foot down there, shifted into first there, which I like, but there was a slight lag as it shifted into second there. So you can use the paddles if you'd like. The paddles do a decent job actually of rev matching on your downshifts, but they're a little slow on the upshift. So you're probably never going to really use the paddles, but they're there. There's also a manual mode here if you guys would like to control it from the traditional gear lever. The driver assistance tech in this car has been improved over the years, but Mazda still doesn't really offer a true lane centering, and the adaptive cruise, their radar cruise control, now has stop and go capability. It works just fine. It's not class leading again. So Mazda is still behind in terms of the tech. In terms of styling, I think they found a new design language with this car that kind of merges Kodo design language themes with a more rugged outdoor take, and I think it works. I think the interior of this car feels a little bit more spacious than a CX-5, but not quite as spacious and open as airy as some of its competitors. The back seat is a little bit more usable. The cargo area is a little bit more usable, but still not the tops in the segment. And in my week's worth of testing, I've been averaging around 24 mpg on a regular gas. You can put premium in it, it'll give you more power if you put premium in it. So it's not wonderful mpg. On the highway, it gets close to 28 mpg. So again, this transmission is holding it back from getting tops in the class fuel economy. So if you want that, wait for the hybrid version. But other than that, it's a perfectly adequate SUV that looks good, that has a slightly more premium vibe, but there are some slightly cheaper bits here in the interior in certain pieces. But overall, I like the car. I just think that you might want to consider waiting for the hybrid version. And there's still that pesky Subaru Outback. Even though the Outback doesn't look quite as good, but looks are subjective, the Outback gives you the same, if not more, interior space, the same, if not more, off-road capability, better fuel efficiency, better acceleration, and some pretty good tech. I mean, obviously this car has its own unique tech in it, but it definitely does things the Mazda's way in terms of SUVs, and it's still a great option. So I really like this car a lot, but I'm very curious to see what Mazda does with it when they introduce the hybrid version. So after spending a full week with the brand new Mazda CX-50, I am pretty happy to report that compared to a CX-5, I would easily pick this just because I like the style of this car. There are so many CX-5s out on the road. Mazda sells like over 150,000 of them. If you want to stand out, drive this vehicle. I was actually surprised at how many people actually took notice of this car. It does turn heads on the road because, again, it's a very attractively styled, well-proportioned vehicle that is just the right size for people, and it also has some great tech in it. The 2.5-liter turbo produces decent acceleration. 0 to 60 in 6.72 seconds certainly won't blow the doors off of anybody, and the 6-speed automatic is smooth shifting, but it's also very slow shifting, and it does affect the fuel economy. So until Mazda puts the hybrid powertrain in this vehicle from Toyota, I'm gonna have to say, I don't know if I would buy it right now, but if you don't want a hybrid, the turbo is definitely the engine that you want to get. Now, in terms of the ride quality, it's definitely on the firmer side. Borderline too firm for me, but for those of you who like a sportier edge, you're gonna really like that. The back seat has pretty good space. The cargo area is also decent, but again, it's a little bit smaller than a main competitor like the Subaru Outback. But really what makes Mazda's new CX-50 so confusing is not only the name, but it's also the fact that Mazda offers 9 different trims on this car. They're gonna add a 10th one later this year, the Meridian Edition, which I haven't had a chance to drive yet. I think 9 trim levels is simply too much. If you guys want the turbo engine, they come in 3 different trims. The base version starts at $26,800, around $650 more than a Mazda CX-5. All-wheel drive is standard on this vehicle as well. If you guys want the turbo, it'll cost you an extra $10,000, but you do get a lot more equipment. My tester here being the Premium Plus basically throws in ventilated seats, the digital driving heads-up display, the wireless phone charger, the 360 camera, the heated rear seats, heated steering wheel. All in, this one here, fully loaded, is just over $43,220, which is a couple $1,000s more expensive than a CX-5 Signature. Now, that is obviously going in today's theme with how you have more tech. It's a bigger vehicle, it's gonna be more expensive. But if you're gonna compare this car to the Subaru Outback XT Touring, that's about $1,000 less, about $2,000 less, depending on how you equip the Subaru, which honestly, the Subaru has a couple of strengths. It's faster, it has more ground clearance, slightly better off-road capability, more trunk space, and it's also a station wagon. But if you don't want a wagon, this, I would argue, is the better looking car. I just think that there are a couple things that hold it back, namely it's the powertrain and the fuel economy of this vehicle. But other than that, it's still a great choice. No longer really the value leader, but it's certainly an interesting choice, and it's worth a look if you guys are also considering a CX-5. But with all that said, hope you guys have enjoyed my full overview on the brand new 2023 Mazda CX-50. If you're also looking to see the latest cars I'm testing, be sure to follow me on Instagram at Redline_reviews, like us on Facebook, and as always, guys, please keep subscribing to the Redline Reviews YouTube channel for all the latest reviews. Thank you so much for watching. I'll catch you all in the next video.